So he did the blood test and his kidneys were at 65% from zero. The doctors were absolutely amazed.
Knowing the ancient secrets is a gift of its own. I mean, you can't put a price on stuff like this. There's no way.
I have quite a story. So I've been part of the initial 100 days course and also the immersion. And then I guess it was 2 months ago, the 30-day miracle experiment experience that I was in the middle of when I got a feeling that just something wasn't okay with my brother who doesn't live, that far away. He lives in the town next door. And I called his neighbor to ask her to go check on him. And she did, and she found him lying unresponsive on the floor of his apartment, just like basically gone. His neighbor, Tamara, called me and said, "What do I do? He's on the floor and he's not talking and he's not here." And I said, "Call 911 and I'll meet you at the hospital." So I was at home. I grabbed a bottle of ghee. I was like kind of in a panic. I just grabbed my ghee and a couple other things and threw it in my bag and went to the hospital. And when I got there, he was completely out of it. He had a few really big seizures when we were there. The doctor said he had zero left brain activity, zero kidney function, zero liver function. All his muscles had atrophied. It was called something like rhabdomyolysis or something where the muscles start to break down. So his legs were completely black and blue. It was 2 months ago, October 13th, that this happened, and he's actually still in the rehab facility. I felt like I was actually guided. I was thinking, okay, if there was ever a time to practice the ancient secrets, it is now. So I just grabbed like a giant glob of ghee in the emergency room when he was out of it and just put it on his head and let it soak in. I really didn't even know what it would do, but that's what my intuition was telling me to do. And he could barely communicate. I've been with people who've died before, and they do this death stare. Like they just stare off they see people that aren't there off into the distance. And he was doing that. He was hallucinating and seeing all kinds of things. His friends who'd passed over were all in the room with him and stuff. He was, trying to communicate this. One thing he did do was he would signal to me to give more ghee, to put more ghee on his head. Like I'd hold up the bottle and he'd say, yeah, put that on there. That's what we did initially in the emergency rooms. And that was a really challenging process, just to be in the emergency room with all of the stuff happening and not knowing what was going on. They sent us down to another emergency room an hour and a half away. I brought a bunch of crushed herbs. I brought ketone for kidney support, Virophyte. I was just sort of using my intuition, what of the herbs that I had, some digestive support. I just crushed them all up, put them in little glass bottles, labeled them. And then we started putting them in his belly button. I just started putting a bunch of them in there with ghee. Again, not 100% sure that I was doing everything right, but I was in communication with the group. I was pushing all the marma points that I knew to push on his body. And he started to come around. He started coming back to life. It was the most miraculous thing to see him coming back from death, basically, is the reality of it. So many of the nurses and doctors were coming in and saying they had never seen a recovery like my brother's. They've never seen someone coming back so fast. At first they didn't care what we were doing, and then they started asking. Different nurses and different doctors were coming into the room and asking what we were doing and what that was and how was it working. And I told a lot of them about the book. Even in the emergency room and at the hospital, I was able to show some marma points to some of the other patients that were in the hospital and help them. And this is something I noticed that I really love about Siddha Veda is there's such hope. Like Dr. Naram said, if no matter what the issue someone could come to him with, he would say, no problem. In the Western field, they come into the room when the person is aware and their subconscious mind is listening, and they say, oh, his liver's shot, his kidneys are shot, his heart is failing, all these things. And then then he would leave and my brother would say, oh no, my organs are failing, and I'd say, no, that's why we're here. They're jump starting. We're kicking them into action. Your kidneys are getting a jump start. And so they put him on dialysis, which was a crazy process to watch. He was on it for a month, going 8 hours a day, 3 days a week, which he said was awful. He called me about 3 weeks ago and said, I just feel like my kidneys kicked into gear. I feel like I don't need dialysis, and they're trying to make me do it. They said I have to be on it for the rest of my life, but I just feel my kidneys working again. So the doctors called me to try to get me to convince my brother to stay on dialysis. They said he's threatening to rip out the port. And I said, well, he probably just wants medical autonomy over his body because he doesn't want to do dialysis. He said he feels like it could go either way. If he's on it, then it could really debilitate him forever. And if he stops, his kidneys have a chance of kicking in. They said there's no way, he's got to be on it. They were going to send him for a psych evaluation because he made that comment. I said, please don't do that. It would be even harder for our family if you do that. I'll convince him to do another blood test to see where his kidney function is at, and then we can go from there. So he did the blood test, and his kidneys were at 65% from 0. The doctors were absolutely amazed. And I talked to the doctor.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. And I asked his doctor, I said, how many people have you seen get off of dialysis? She said, in 8 years, I've only ever seen one person. And then the place that removed his port, when I talked to them too for follow-up, I said, how many people get off dialysis? She said, I've never seen anybody come off of it. My brother has had such a challenging life, and I always joke with him that he's like a super cat with 18 lives, because he's just had so many things that he's gone through. But he says to me now, he said, I know I have a purpose on this planet. I want to help heal people. I want to teach people what I'm learning. I want to, he's really got this new lease on life now for healing himself and doing things differently. And I'm so grateful to the Ancient Secrets. I'm telling you, there's nothing like being put to the test, a life or death situation to prove to yourself this is real. This stuff works. This is in addition to everything else I've experienced myself with all of it.
Knowing the ancient secrets is a gift of its own. It's priceless. It's a gift in itself to be able to help yourself. Dr. Trump says it's not about making people dependent, about making people independent, about giving them a possibility they may not have known existed before. One of the reasons why I've been pushing so much and doing my best to make sure people know about the upcoming 100-day course is because I know it can change people's lives. I know it. I just want people to know it exists, that could benefit from it.